Massive floodings struck Spain at the end of October, causing major damage in the cities of Valencia, among other places, and killing up to as many as 200 people. With me, I have Mr. Gonzalez-Gallarza, a fellow for the Center of Fundamental Rights in Madrid. Welcome.
Thank you, Elias. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, so regarding this disaster, we have climate change, we have dam failures, and we have bad emergency responses. What exactly is the picture here? What is to blame?
Well, you're absolutely right to ask the question, and I want to first of all, to sort of briefly describe some of the natural conditions that led to this massive bout of flooding on the east of Spain, as you mentioned, and maybe even look at some of the roots in policymaking. What were the policy failures, as you have alluded to? But I think the larger picture that I think would be interesting also to your audience and folks across Europe is, what does this tell us about a society like Spain, and what is the effect going to be of this kind of catastrophe for Europe and for other European nations? And I mean, I'll just begin by reminding that this instance of cold drop is what it's called. It's what the meteorologists call it. It's a cold drop. But this is, by historical standards, historically speaking, this is not that black swan of an event. It's not that much of an outlier. This has actually happened many times in Spanish history over the past 2 to 3 centuries, especially in the Spanish Levant, in the east of Spain, on the Mediterranean coast, in the regions of Valencia, a little bit in Catalonia and in Murcia as well, but mostly in Valencia. This is an actually pretty routine event, as I say, historically speaking. Now, what happened, though, is that it didn't need to turn this catastrophic. And let's just remind what actually happened was that there was obviously heavy rainfall over the course of more than a day. On October 29th, as you mentioned, this was over 2 weeks ago. And what happened was that the dams, many of the dams that populate the region overflew. They became overflown very quickly, and that sort of translated into the infrastructure in the rivers and the small rivers. There's like a major river to the east of Spain called El Turia, and the smaller rivers that adjoin that larger river overflew as well. And many of the villages nearby, especially in the province of Valencia, which is one of the 3 provinces in the region of Valencia, became waterlogged. They became flooded as well, and people saw water rising in their homes, and sort of the rural areas of that part of the country be totally wet and flooded. But what I want to remind, though, is that there is, I think, a sort of a national root to the problem. The last such rainfall that we had, the last such riada, as we call it, the cold drop, the last one that we had was in 1957. And what happened then, this was under Franco, and what happened then was that the Turia River was channeled. There was a lot of infrastructure built at the time to channel the river so that when something of this nature happened, the water on that river would very quickly be directed to the sea. But what happened, though, is that since this was the main purpose for this was to spare the city, Valencia, they didn't want the city to be inundated. But what happened was that as a result, all of the water on the river went straight to the sea, and on its way, it waterlogged all of these smaller villages, which were also heavily urbanized, much more heavily urbanized than they were in the 50s, and that created a funnel effect, so the water rose much quicker. This is just, long story short, I don't want to spend too much time on the natural disaster. I want to finish just by saying that in terms of the politics, we have seen, and I'd love to get deeper into why this is, but we've seen a Spanish political elite that is so polarized that they weren't able to coordinate the response. The 2 major parties in the country, the ruling Socialist Party, which runs Madrid, runs the national government, along with a coalition of left-wing parties, they run Madrid, and the Valencia region is run by the main opposition party, the center-right PP. Neither side flashed the alerts that were necessary, even though both had enough information to know that this could turn pretty ugly. Neither flashed the alert on people's phones, so this was very much a surprise factor. And then what happened was that neither side claimed authority or claimed responsibility. Neither wanted to wrestle the authority over the response. So they shifted the blame and they pointed fingers. They said, this is a matter for the regional leaders to handle, was said on Madrid's side, and vice versa. The regional leaders were saying the same. So this is, and we can get deeper into why that is, but I just want to give your viewers a sense of the political polarization, which made this a much bigger catastrophe than it should have ever become.
A lot of people are citing climate change, for example, but you're saying that this what was it called, like this rain phenomenon that you see in Spain, that it wasn't actually unprecedented at all. Is that really the case here?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, on a sort of a historical time frame, if we go back maybe to the 16th century, there have been many such catastrophes. Some have even been obviously much deadlier than this one. As you mentioned, there's over 200 people dead already and many more missing. But there have been deathlier cold drops in this very region in the past. Now, to your question, but obviously we can't really compare. That was a different context back then. There was different infrastructure. Even the weather was different, as you mentioned. But in terms of the climate change, look, it has really become a climate change issue. You're seeing climate change become political over the question of what could have been done to prevent this from happening. So there is, even not just on nationally, and I could go into some of the details nationally, but even at the EU level, there's like a bunch of biodiversity laws, and there was a package of these laws that was recently approved that want to get rid of a number of dams and wells and infrastructure, hydrological infrastructure that is there to contain the water. They want to get rid of it because actually they believe, or the environmentalist kind of mindset posits, that those pieces of infrastructure are actually obstructing the water from flowing freely. So we need to get rid of them so that, whenever there's heavy rain, the water descends and goes to the sea, and we avoid inundation. But on the other side, that's precisely the point that is made to keep these types of infrastructure. So I think that's a policy issue that should be hashed out and decided by the experts. But to your question, what you're seeing, I think, in the national debate right now in Spain is, on one side, the left wing, which is saying that this is caused by climate change, that there was nothing that we could have done about it, that this was bound to be a deathly catastrophic event. And on the other side, we have the right wing, which is mostly the Conservative Party of Spain, which is called Vox, and a substantial share of the center-right party as well, that is actually looking for responsibility and political responsibility in the national government, which has implemented many of these environmental policies as well.
So who do you think stands to gain politically from this? Because this is a very hotly debated issue right now. Is the right going to get the right on this narrative, or do you think that the left is going to wrestle this into the hands of the climate debate?
That's a very, very ominous and interesting question. And I want to remind, actually, and I should have maybe begun by alluding to this, that just in the next 2 weeks, what we're seeing in Brussels is the confirmation process for a number of commissioners that will become the ministers, so to speak, of Ursula von der Leyen's cabinet. And one of them, and actually Ursula is number 2, her direct deputy, she's really going to be the number 2 of the commission, is a Spaniard. Her name is Teresa Ribera, and she remains to this day the Minister for Ecological Transition in Spain. She was the minister in charge as this was happening, and she had already been designated by the government here to become a commissioner in the next European cabinet. But she is undergoing her confirmation process, and obviously her nomination is on the line. We have obviously the right-wing parties in Spain that are demanding answers from her. They're asking her to appear before the parliament and to commit to not taking up her job or resigning eventually if she's found guilty in Spanish court of having been negligent. Because again, she also refused, and many of her, a lot of people in her sort of ministry were of the opinion that you didn't need to strengthen dams and wells, and this is part of what caused this catastrophe. So her nomination is on the line. Remember, this would be Ursula von der Leyen's number 2. So the catastrophe in the east of Spain with this rainfall could derail the process to confirm a European Commission, which Ursula wants confirmed by December 1st, because she really wants to have her team in place before Trump gets into office. So what the rainfall that affected maybe just a few villages in Spain is actually potentially going to have rippling consequences at the European level. What I want to finish by saying to your question is that, yes, this is an ideological issue. Spain, just like many other societies in Europe, are torn apart over the issue of climate change. And what you're seeing in Spain is a special heightened degree of political polarization, which just paralyze the response. And Spaniards are shocked. They just don't really understand why. How can politics claim lives? I mean, it's not that they want to absolve either side. Actually, they think both sides share responsibility. What they want both sides to do is to leave their vendettas behind and to act in concert to save lives. That's what they didn't do. 200 people died as a result. Many of them died as a direct result of the lack of coordination. So I just really hope that your viewers in other countries will know what to demand their politicians not to act like.
Thank you, Jorge Gonzalez-Gallarza at the Center for Fundamental Rights in Madrid, for your commentary.
Thank you so much, Elias. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching Rick's Europe.